However, I'm trying to go through it as fast as possible. It's actually one of my favorite things to teach because I really like being in the field. So I hate it, I love it. But if you happen to start kind of getting a little droopy or start to fall asleep, please be the courtesy of standing up, or don't touch your shipmate, but like give them a nudge or something like, hey, wake up. I can say something very mean. Some people who were here at last EAP cycle probably remember that I yelled at a couple of people pretty loud. Josiah was here actually. I did yell at them. Those that did not sleep. I did not go back to sleep. That's what I'll say. I did send a second slide deck that I sent over to H1 regarding these right here. I did update it back in February of 2023, but however, it's just not in this format. So I'm going to work on basically updating the new stuff into this one. The good news is that everything that's on this slide is in that sheet that I gave you. All right? All the stuff we went through earlier today, it's all in that sheet that I gave you. And I'm going to email it to H1, to the HM1s and the chief, so they can distribute it to everyone else who's virtual or participating, because everybody kind of needs to have a leg up on this. All right, NAVMED P5010, Chapter 9, Preventive Medicine for Ground Forces. This is probably one of the ones that you're going to be dealing with a lot, especially if you go expeditionary, or actually everybody's going to be expeditionary, right? So one of the easiest references to go through, but there's a lot. All right, I spent listed in 2008, stationed in Corpus Christi, first duty station at the field or FMSS in Camp Pendleton. Went to Corpus Christi. I was assigned to 1st Marine Division as a platform. Then I went to 1MEF, deployed to Afghanistan. Came back, went on 2 different ships of division. Was with MLG for the most part. And then from there I got needs of the Navy. By the way, all needs of the Navy orders. I've never gotten to pick where I wanted to go. The only thing I got to pick was to go to PMT school and to enlist. That's it. Needs of the Navy over to Marine Corps Security Force Battalion in Bangor, Washington. Needs of the Navy over to 2nd MLG. And now I'm here. So I did 3 back-to-back CQ questions. So it was very near and dear to my heart, and I actually really like doing this stuff. If I can go back, I would do it in a heartbeat. But my knees are starting to hurt because I'm 37. It's going to be your overview, introduction, water supply, sanitation in the field, food service in the field, waste disposal methods in the field, prevention of heat injuries, prevention of cold injuries, which I'm not going to go too much into, and disease control. The biggest ones that are going to be in this are going to be water, food, waste. Cool. Preserving combat readiness by providing technical guidance to preserve the combat readiness of naval operational forces ashore by preventing illness and injury. That's why it's important right there. Throughout history, diseases have actually caused more illnesses and killed more people than actual GSWs or gunshot wounds or artillery rounds or anything like that. Why? Because when you're in the field, you are susceptible to more of those like diseases because your sanitation is gone, right? You are drinking out of water bottles, you are sleeping on the dirt, you are, in austere locations, or austere remote locations. So you can see it's actually gotten better as we've gone through. Now the statistics for the Gulf War and for OIF, I was there, OIF and OEF. Those are actually still being generated because when it comes to statistics, it takes years for them to actually be published. So like, if you want to find out how many STI cases there were in Chesapeake, Virginia, you're only going to get 2 years ago because it takes a long time for everything to be compiled. And that's where we use DRSI and we use a system called DOORS, which is a repository for all of these things. The MBI, disease non-battle injuries, things like that. So it's very important. The Army has a much longer history in this, obviously because they are, up until these times frame right here, sailors were sailors, not really like too much on the ground. We were dealing with the Army more. They have a lot of actual history on that. Now I was going to put it in here, fortunately I didn't. After action reports, this is going to be your phases of deployment. Pre-deployment, deployment, post-deployment. All right, so pre-deployment is all the workups, everything that you're doing to get ready. As a medical representative, this is when you're actually going through and looking at medical readiness. You're looking to make sure that you're looking at NCMI, the National Center for Medical Intelligence, to see, hey, we're going to a place where malaria is endemic. Maybe we should probably get some Mallory. Maybe we should get some bed nets. Maybe we should get some DEEP and not make the service member pay for every pocket, which is typically what happens. These are things that you have to start planning, right? So that's the pre-deployment phase. Deployment, that's where you're at. You're out in the field, and this applies also for like when you go to like training exercise on the ground. If anybody here is 844 or now Lima 03 Alpha, it's the same process for when you actually go into the field, because you train how you fight, right? Post-deployment, that's going to be basically coming back, or what they call redeployment. Coming back to the stateside, coming back to your home station, wherever it is that you may be. Personnel deploying for less than 6 months, after action reports are due within 15 days of mission completion. If you're deploying for anything over than 6 months, they have to be done within 30 days of mission completion. And that's basically to come back and you can relax a little bit and generate all your thoughts and get all your documentation and put it into the after action report. This becomes very important because one thing that I know a lot of people have actually probably told you, probably the first time that you've been told this, but you need to write everything down. Everything needs to be written down. All PMTs, they're not required, suggested. I have all of mine that I've gone through all my exercises and deployments. Literally, it's a PMT journal. It's a regular logbook. I write down important contact information, how much water, how many people, how many toilets we have, the frequency, everything, and it's literally a lot of writing. I'm not the nerd that's in the background literally writing stuff down. I'll put some examples of it for the next one. So hopefully you guys won't have to take this class again. But if unfortunately you do, I'll put actual templates of like stuff that I did in the field themselves, all right? So you can see what it is.
So an easy way to remember the after action report, just because it's gonna follow the same time frame, your post-deployment assessment in the DHA instruction is also within 30 days after returning from that deployment, right? And a deployment is defined as anything over that 6-month period. So know that the after action report and the time frame for getting your assessment done when you come back is all both going to be 30 days.
That's a good point to put on. Absolutely. Those are going to be your AMOLs right there. AMOLs are typically always on the advancement exam, so I would definitely look at.
They have Appendix A on their bibs, so it's on there.
The MRCT, whatever, the health service report. Yeah, I would definitely look at those because they're going to ask, okay, which one is CNBC in there? CBIRD, things like that. You need to know those. So for these right here, specifically for us, the 637 is called the preventive medicine maneuver. Preventive medicine maneuver. 638 is preventive medicine technician. And that's not the NEC or NLS, right? That's the actual like AMOL block, the can of all the equipment. The 637 is small. It's the smallest block that we have, really, really small, but it has all the absolute basics that you need for establishing a camp. Respirators, water purification, WBGT, things like that. Traps. For some reason we had sample cups in there, I don't know why.
The term they use for this one too, because it's going to be different than the other ones, is PrevMed N2, E-N-T-O, and then the other one's PrevMed Maneuver. So the other ones are like equipment and supplies is how the AMOLs and ADOLs are broken down. And I'll show you guys when we get there. I have a ditty for that, but for the PrevMed, the key term they use is PrevMed N2 for that 637.
Yeah, it's basically just a maneuver. That one can be issued to any person who's gone through the PMR course. So Quad Zero, going out to the field, you're going to go over your talent, you're going to go with the CVs, whoever. If you're attached to the Army, you can get, well, not the Army, because it has to be under the Marine Corps, under MedLog. But you can get that issued, and you can act as a preventive medicine program, all right? The PMT block, which is the 638, has everything you need for a MEF level operation. So like we had talked about yesterday, when you're doing MEF level operations, which are 60 days, like when the MEF is going to war, when they activate a fleet hospital, that's when you get the actual 637, the 637, all right? That has everything. It has pesticides, it has traps, it has not a reefer, but it has an incubator, it has water supplies, it has everything. And I've been trying for the longest time to get my own WBGT because the new one's like this big. It's great. It's a Kestrel, no calibration time. It's great. But unfortunately, I'm not going to. Water supply sanitation in the field, essential for every living organism. Just like we talked about earlier, right? Roaches need abundant water. Basically, every living organism needs water. Those MOT, things that we need: moisture, oxygen, food, and temperature, right? Untreated water can affect diseases such as this, specifically cholera. That's actually been on the rise lately. That is Vibrio species. There's Vibrio parahemolyticus, a whole bunch of different ones. But what you need to worry is that's it right there. Cholera, shigellosis, typhoid, paratyphoid fever, viral hepatitis, gastroenteritis, which is poop. What killed all the people in the Oregon Trail, which is dysentery. Heteroitis is just a schistosomiasis. That right there is one thing that I would write down. I did not put that one in your bib, the little bib, micro bib that I gave you, but I would put that right there. Green side, regardless, Marines require 19.7 gallons of water per man per day. Navy requires 24.6 gallons per man per day.
And what's the, correct me wrong, what's the 50-gallon one for? Because I know there's a 50-gallon one that's for field.
I believe that one, it's, well, if you're doing like a BAS or like an STP, field, like a field hospital, it's 65 gallons of water per man per day. The other slide deck that I sent you has that full chart on it.
Okay.
Like there's more considerations, because like the way that you look at the chart, you can actually say, okay, cool, we're not gonna be doing any laundry. All right, great, counting those extra 3 gallons of water. Okay, cool, we're not gonna have actual patients. Okay, cool, we don't need those 65 gallons of water. You kind of just break it down. But the minimum you need is at least for heat casualties and for drinking. And that's like bare bones, like very bare bones. Unit commanders are responsible for ensuring enough safe water for the personnel. So ultimately, the battalion commander, the exercise commander, not your camp commandant, but whoever it is that's out there that's like responsible for your troop, your battalion, or your element, is going to be overall responsible. Engineers are responsible for providing the water. Medical only advises, and we do quality control checks. That is it. So we're out there in the morning, then at lunch, then in the evening, we check the water. Quad zeros as well.
So don't overlook that. These are the questions that are going to trip you up on the test. Again, looking at those keywords, if you hear about responsible for ensuring, it's usually going to be your CO or whoever's in charge at that level. This one where it's going to confuse you is you hear potable water, you're going to immediately think it's medical or PrevMed, right? All this is saying is the engineering provides the kind of facilities or machines that are needed to produce potable water. And then it's our responsibility to test that water to make sure it is still potable and safe for consumption.
So again, medical is not responsible for creating the water. However, the reality is we're out there, we're actually like adding chlorine and things like that, because the AMOL cans do have that in there. These are the water sources you can have: streams, ponds, lakes, wells, springs, ice, snow, and of course the oceans. One of those right there actually requires, actually 2 of them, because even a stream, brackish water. But however, desalination must happen before when it comes to water. You can't be drinking salt water, right? Surface water, the intake, that's going to be as far away from contamination as possible. Typically uphill, so you want to be away. Because if you're downhill, something dies in between, you're getting water from there, the water's getting like poison, right? So you always want it to be uphill, as far away as possible. So even if you're down at the bottom of a hill, and this has happened in Afghanistan actually, you're down at the bottom of the hill and they have this thing connected to a ROPU, which is a reverse osmosis purifying unit, or a LIPS or TWIPS, whatever it is that you have. They had the thing going all the way to the Helmand River. So it was like really far, it was like guarded and protected, so we can get water. Those are going to be your distance right there, 100 feet from all existing sources of contamination. And contamination can be basically anything. It could be runoff, it could be you go to India and people are just pooping in the water. It could be dead bodies, animals, things like that. Any kind of contamination, especially runoff. Nobody ever thinks about runoff, but like runoff from like equipment, it's extremely regulated. Like especially if you're in California, if you see a 7-ton that doesn't have a freaking a drip pan underneath it, someone's going to mask. It's extremely important. And of course, like I just said right there, salt water requires desalination by using the ROPU system. The ROPU, like I said, the other one, there isn't one here. In the other slide deck that Rachel should be sending out to everyone, I actually put some pictures of it and what it actually looks like. That's the most common. The erdolator is a truck-mounted response. It's only on your advancement exam, in this chapter specifically. Now mind you, chapter 10, or chapter 9 of the NAVMED P 5010, which is this one, was updated in 1991. I think I was 5. We've had many wars since then, so this is something that's very due, or excuse me, operations. We have, this is very due to actually get updated again. But for test purposes, those are the 2 for treating in the water, the ROPU and the erdolator. Chlorination is going to be the most common method of disinfection. After chlorine is added, contact time is 30 minutes. I would write that one down. Chlorine overall. There's different types of chlorine, right? So you have calcium hypochlorite, which that one's in the AMOL. It comes in about a little can, about the size of like a monster. And it is extremely potent because it's about 60, I think the one that we have is 60% chlorine. And you have to measure in order for you to get the right chlorination for your actual containers. And I did put on the little slide that I gave you, like poison do not drink, things like that, and that's actually, I believe, on the next slide. Overall, what I would foresee them asking you on the advancement exam is going to be, what is the preferred agent for purifying water, for disinfecting potable water? Chlorine. Remember chlorine. Those are your water residuals right there. So when you're taking the advancement exam, if they're going to ask you what the chlorine residuals are, right? Thankfully, chapter 10 and chapter 6 or 5 is not your advancement exam, because the actual thing nowadays is 0.2, because that's pool water. Pool water is typically anywhere from 3 and above. But why? You're highly susceptible, you're in the field. Bleaches are really going to mess with you that much and that concentration. But overall, you're seeing the trend there, 2 to 5 parts per million free available chlorine. 2 to 5 in the field, 2 to 5 in the field, so I gotta remember. When you do super chlorinating of an actual water bowl, does anybody see what a water bowls look like? There's a lot of this uniform in there. If you haven't seen it, it's big old, the Army calls them water buffaloes. It's basically a truck with a big old can. It's water, right? So when you're cleaning them, it's supposed to be cleaned if they have not been used in every 30 days. You have to make a supernatant, you never say that word, which is basically a highly concentrated version of the sodium calcium, or the calcium hypochlorite, or you can use regular liquid bleach as well. That's sodium hypochlorite. And you have to mix it, put it in, and the thing that I would remember is that typically, after 4 hours, it must remain above 50 parts per million. So when you test your water strip, you're in the actual testing kit, you'll have your strips, and it'll be, hey, you're going to test your pH or your chlorine level from that, and it has to be above 50 parts per million. If it is not, the entire process has to start again. And it's all a huge waste of water, because you're supposed to triple rinse the container. That's 400 gallons of water, right? Triple rinse the container, dump it, and then start the entire process again. It's a waste of time. And I've spent many hours doing that. The one thing that on that as well is poison do not drink. It does have to be marked on there, because it is poison. Typically, you want it to reach over 100 parts per million when you're doing the chlorination process. For the container, this is only for mind you, chlorination, superchlorination is only for the container. Only for the water bowl, the Lister bag, and not the dairy cans, which you can do it as well. But only for the water container itself. All right, superchlorination is for the water bowl.
I want to mention that number. You know, I said numbers always appear over and over again, so it's easy to remember them. So that 4 hours, right? It's going to pop up in a bunch in PrevMed. 4 hours is your holding times for foods. 4 hours is the time of training for your person in charge or any kind of food safety training. And now you got your 4 hours here to chlorinate water. So
That's a good catch. I really want to learn. 4 hours is one of the golden rules for my lessons. Canteens and 5-gallon water cans, most commonly referred to as jerry cans. They're your containers are about that big. They have like a big old lid on it and everything. You see all these trucks now trying to be overlanders, and they have them attached to the back of their vehicles. I get it. To actually purify any water on that, you're going to find the clearest water that you can find. I mean, it doesn't exactly have to be fully clear, but you're going to grab your canteen, fill that up with as clear water as you can. You're going to add 2 iodine tablets. That is still the preferred method. In each canteen, you're going to do it right here actually. You're going to loosely thread it so it's still open, right? You can let it sit there for 5 minutes so the actual tablets are dissolved. Then after that, you're going to wiggle it around a little bit, shake it vigorously, so if the threads are actually getting wet. Well, I would do it here, but it's going to get wet. So if you actually do that, it's going to actually put that iodine around the actual lid. And then you close it, you let it sit for 30 minutes.
So how long does it take for the canteen? 30 minutes or 35 minutes? 35 minutes. Okay.
It's the exact same process for the 5-gallon water tank. The exact same process. All right? And you can get into the actual math for it. You say, hey, well, the canteen is 1,000 milliliters, and then how many ounces are in this. Chapter 10 actually has a breakdown of how you're actually measuring right there. The metric system is superior for a lot of reasons regarding that, but we threw T in the harbor for a reason. For the 5-gallon water can, it's going to be the exact same system, exact same process. 35-minute wait. and you're gonna use 40 iodine tablets. All right, and if you happen to be in a situation where you're the only one there, the IFACs that you're issued actually have that. They're catadine water iodine tablets. You can even use a tincture liquid, but that would be you buying stuff out of pocket. Yes?
So on the test, if they ask something along the lines of how long does, like their day, and says, how long does it take to make a water safety drink with canteen, like a normal canteen?
35 minutes.
So that's why I'm telling you all that. What they're going to do is put the ending minutes on there.
Yeah.
They're going to put 35 minutes. They're going to put 30 minutes. I'm telling you now. And they're going to put 2 other kind of time frames on there. And you need to know that it's a total of 35 minutes. You can easily get tripped up paying attention to that last line there.
Yeah, overall, 35 minutes. And that is actually a question that's been on the advancement exam. And if anybody here is old enough to, or been in long enough to remember, you remember the North Star guides?
Yep.
The North Star guides, I think somebody got fired for that because it was literally a manual, like that big, full size, and it was all test questions. Literally just all exam questions. It was prior to Blue Jacket tier and everything. I think somebody got in trouble for that because I remember looking at it and I made second in 2012, and I was like, this is on the test. Like these are actual questions. I've been trying. I have one. I've been trying to find it.
The 40 iodine tablets is usually on the test too, so just know what that amount is. I've seen that a couple
Requirements
times.
for free available chlorine is going to be daily. All right. Bacteriological testing is going to be weekly in the field. Weekly for bacteriological, so back T. Used to be you have to actually light up a little thing and make sure count how many spores are in the water. Now it's a lot easier. You just put the water in, put a little packet in. They have field ones. I have a few at my house. But again, just remember, free available chlorine FAC is going to be daily. Bacteriological is going to be weekly. Food service in the field. Not really much for that one. But this could actually make or break the actual field operation along with the morale of your troops. All right. Storage, everything is going to be inspected by the food service officer at the time of receipt. The exact same thing happens when you're at sea. Supply logistics food service officer is going to be the person who's going to inspect everything that's needed. Right? Refrigerators and freezers, I will write this one down, and you have heard me mention this one before. Freezers overall are to be maintained at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or below, even field freezers. Field freezers are basically just a big old Conex box, like you see them all over here, but they have power in them, and it's a real bummer when they break. Because when you're in the field, it happened to us when I was there. We had a huge push in 2012, and one of our reefers that we had, that we were storing bodies in, went out, and we went to River City for 3 weeks. So we had bodies that were putrid, that were decomposing inside of the reefer, and we had to check on them because it's a requirement, once an hour, and that smell, I can still smell it to this day.
So I'd like to give you another tip here for your defrosting here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you know there's something else that's also a quarter, right? So defrosting, a frost accumulation exceeds 1/4 inch thickness, okay? Does anybody know how many ice machines have to be inspected each week? It's going to be 1/4 or 1/4 of all of your ice machines on the ship, right? Literally matching up to the same exact number for the defrosting.
Not necessarily hot fills, but say
that's something
Balboa
that's
has.
in the reality, we don't test ice anymore.
Yeah,
In real world, we don't test ice anymore. But you always could if they really need to. It's just a huge hassle because you got to get
You're
the
right.
ice
That's
and
what we
melt
got
it
here.
and color it and
Even though we're small, they test
but
us.
because it is on your bids, I would remember that.
We'll get a tasker for
PHF, that's potentially hazardous foods, but it's basically anything that gets cold. Anything that can get bacteria, anything that can get people sick. Chopping and grinding of the meat in the field is prohibited. That has been in the advancement exam before. This one as well.
Hey,
Frozen foods, again, thawed under refrigeration. Thawed under refrigeration, and you never refreeze on food that's been defrosted. That's how you get freezer filling, that's how you get bacterial growth, because it's sitting in ambient air, preferably cooler than that. Bacteria starts growing up again, right? So bacteria freezes after a certain amount, and then you're basically activating the bacteria again, and then you refreeze it again. It's not going to be a good day, all right? Biggest takeaway from that one, thawed under refrigeration. They may actually say you can thaw it under cool running water. That's acceptable as well. I would remember those right there. Fruits and vegetables must be soaked in 100 parts per million free available chlorine solution for 15 minutes or 50 parts per million for your available chlorine for 100 minutes. So when you are in the field and your field mess or your expeditionary or tactical field kitchen personnel are there, they have the exact same three sink system that are in basically like galleys, or if anybody's ever worked food service before, they have to submerge all the fruits and vegetables into that for those contact times right there. That ideally actually cleans all the food. Well, cleans the food. Once again, 4-hour time rule, right? Any food, this is very, very strictly enforced in the field. Like very, very, you have like, often I wouldn't like get to eat really, like I just have to grab like, you know, my cigarettes and my coffee. I only smoke in the field. And then like go do my inspections. I'd be monitoring these people, because once you're in the field, you're already in a highly susceptible community, but you're also like, you get tired and like it becomes mundane and you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you become lax. Lax meaning you become like complacent. You don't want to do it anymore. So I'd spend a lot of time literally watching people, making sure that they were doing it. Set my timer, be like, hey, 4 hours, you gotta throw it out, you gotta throw it out. You give it to someone else, throw it out. And again, the danger zone temperature's right there. It's a little more stringent for the field. The temperatures changed per the other manual, because the other manuals have been updated a lot faster than this one. So I would worry more about the 140 to, or the 45 to 135. Biggest takeaway too, same thing if you ever take a food handler course. Hot foods must be maintained hot. Cold foods must be maintained cold. MREs, they do expire. They in fact do expire after 48 months. T rations, they're not really called that anymore. They're called UGRs, unitized group rations. Basically all it is basically like, you guys have seen like a cookie sheet, but it is just the contents of an MRE inside of that. And then you have this like heater, you put them like that, and they like basically submerge and cook by hot water. The same thing, you're only supposed to eat these for 21 days. But here's the kicker about that one. After, and actually you probably heard me talk about this last week too. After the 21 days, you're supposed to be given fresh fruit, milk, right? Fruit and milk, biggest things they're supposed to give you. But here's the kicker. If you are in an exercise that's 60 days, right, and you are getting MREs for lunch or one for breakfast and one for dinner, but somebody shows up and they're like, oh, by the way, here's an apple. We got apples, great, awesome. I love an apple. Technically, you just restarted that 21-day count again. Kind of messed up, right? But it's the truth, because the minute that you have that fresh fruit or milk, including the little UHT milks, that clock starts all over again. Waste disposal methods, so there's differences right here. You're gonna have human waste, feces, and urine. I wrote these down inside of your little thing that I gave you. It's black water. You're gonna have your bathing and liquid kitchen waste. It's gonna be gray water. Garbage is gonna be anything that's organic material. All right, so like foods. Garbage is foods. But if you have like cardboard, like that right there, boxes, cardboard, paper, plastics, those are going to be rubbish. They may ask you about the rubbish one. What is rubbish? Is cardboard rubbish? Yes. Responsibilities. Unit commander to the engineering section are responsible for disposal of the waste. Once again, the unit commander, the CO, is responsible for the waste. All facilities must be inspected by preventive medicine prior to. IDCs can do it as well if they've received the proper training for it. Not just the 2 or 3 weeks that they do it at IDC school. It's the actual you've been trained by preventive medicine, by the NAVMED. I would take a picture of that, I would write it down, I would highlight it in that note that I gave you, because these are on almost every single advancement exam that you've been on, that you will ever take. So they're going to be location of latrines from food and water supplies is going to be 100 feet from the nearest natural water source, so your lakes, your rivers, your ponds, things like that. 100 yards / 300 feet from food service areas, because 100 yards is 300 feet. And at a minimum, 50 feet from birthing areas. And those I wrote down in the little thing that I typed up for you guys. Disposing of human waste in the field. The way that they'll ask it on the advancement exam is going to be 1 foot by 1 foot. Cat holes are only to be used while on the move, while on the march. All right? Only that. Straddle trench has been on the advancement exam as well. It's basically just a hole, and you go back to back with your buddy and you Pretty simple. But I would remember those right there, and I did write those down on the slide that I gave you, all right? So it's gonna be 4 foot long by 1 foot wide by 2.5 foot deep. Temporary bivouacs, meaning like you're at a patrol base and you're only there for X amount of time and then you're leaving. Like, but that requires man hours, that requires your E3s and below, to knock that stuff out. So trench for 25 people. Urine soakage pit, 1 pipe for every 20 men. I didn't put that on there because I haven't seen it in the advanced exam, but you might want to take a picture of it. Urine trough, it's literally what it sounds like. Like you think about feeding like a trough of food for pigs, the exact same thing. It's a slanted thing and men just go and pee on it. And it drapes off over into like soakage. We built a lot of them at Camp Lejeune for training. I did that a lot actually. I love doing that stuff. Burn barrel latrine. Anybody have to do this? They're not fun. Because you have to put diesel, gasoline, light it on fire, mix it. It's not fun. After burning for the burn barrel trees, you have to bury it at least 12 inches deep, and it has to be marked. Soakage pit, that's going to be for all of your field waters, or your gray water, right? It's going to be, soakage pit and soakage trench are going to be like the same, they mean the exact same thing. It's going to be 4 by 4 feet, and that's going to be for 200 people or less. So if you only have a company, the company is 50, 60 people to 100 people, that's totally fine. And that's for food waste and water, like water waste. It's like a shower. Basically, you can set up your shower area, like a little area, I guess you can just put, and then just have it run off to that area. Garbage disposal is only going to be disposed by burial or incineration. When troops are on the move on the march for camps for less than 1 week, 100 feet away from any natural water source. Can anybody guess why? Not just runoff. Not just groundwater. Because groundwater would be a natural water source. But the reason why is because if you're doing it close to any kind of water source, pests are going to want to go get it because they want to get water. Right? You see kind of the trend that we're going to here? You want to keep it away from where these animals, these vectors and pests and things are actually attracted to. Incineration, for if your camp's going to be there for a week or more, you can burn it. It's going to be 50 yards away from the camp area. I did a lot of burning when we were in Afghanistan. I'm part of the burning registry too. Anybody who went over there is probably part of it too. We burned body parts, we burned trash, poop, all these things. We shouldn't be doing that, especially not the plastic part. We shouldn't be doing burning plastics. A couple of heat injuries. Prevention of heat injuries, it's going to be ambient air temperature, wind velocity, humidity, radiant heat. Those are the types of heat that you're going to be getting and what can affect your responses to that, the physiological ones. Or physiological factors are going to be illnesses, any previous history of heat injury, skin trauma, dehydration, fatigue, obesity, poor physical conditioning, alcohol or drug abuse, because it dehydrates you, but it has a potential, and sickle cell trait. That has to do with the absorption of the actual water into the red blood cells. One that is not on there, but it's on the other slide deck, is going to be rank. Can anybody guess why? Rank. Your grade. A good HM1 is going to be digging a hole outside from everybody. A bad HM1 is going to make the E4s and below dig the holes. Rank is actually a factor as well. Does anybody, this is actually a test question as well, but it's not on here. Does anybody know why previous history of heat injury is important?
Because it's usually going to reoccur.
Hypothalamus, right? Basically having brain damage. Hypothalamus is affected when that happens. I'll try to go as fast as I can here because there's a lot. Two differences in type of heat injuries: heat cramp, syncope, exhaustion, stroke. Stroke, of course, is the most deadly. But that's basically when the biggest way to remember that is when you actually have stroke is that you're dry. Because you have run out of all the cooling factors. Because sweating is cooling, right? It actually makes you cool. Anybody who's Hispanic, that's why your mom makes caldo in freaking 100-degree weather outside, and because it actually cools you down. Because it makes you sweat. You're eating hot stuff, it makes you sweat. Heat exhaustion, you're still going to be wet. For heat cramps, it's basically just going to be cooling and electrolyte replacement. Not just drinking water, not slamming water. It's like sipping water, having a little bit of the ORS, the oral rehydration solutions, or like Gatorade. In all the MREs, they actually have like little powders, the carbohydrate powder. Like that's something you should keep on there as well. Heat syncopes is when there's too much pooling in the blood in the extremities. So like standing at attention for way too long and not like doing this or like tightening your legs or anything like that to make sure that the blood flow is going, blood flow is continuous, will actually cause pooling in the blood and okay. Once again, heat exhaustion is going to be the worst one. That's a actual vascular collapse due to excessive water and salt depletion. So you can actually give yourself heat stress or heat stroke if you're just slamming water all the time, because then you're going to have your electrolyte balance. There's a specific term for it. Hyponatremia. There you go. It's hypokalemia. Yeah, it's actually like leaving my mind for some reason. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here that I thought I was going to forget. Emergency cooling is going to be for that, IV fluid replacement and transport. So basically your aid stations, when you're in garrison, you're going to have cooling heat decks, what they call a heat deck, which is basically a pool and access to ice. And you just throw the person in there and just cool them down immediately as fast as they can. Fortunately, a lot of people have passed away over that over the past few years. There was a first class, or second class that died at Camp Lejeune actually for that. We had ever been, Camp Lejeune gets really hot and humid, worse than here. And it's, it can literally get to about 80% humidity and about 100 degrees by 6 in the morning. Many a time that I get out of my car and I see booty cheeks on the ground because they're putting a thermometer right there. Oh, drinking my coffee, go inside. Those are going to be your body temps right there, 104 degrees to 108 degrees. That is a medical emergency. It's immediate. Rectal thermometer. Yes. Rectal temp is going to be your most accurate. Acclimatization, I can never say that word either. It's going to be 3 weeks. I think we talked about it earlier, or maybe last week.
Yep.
Your time to actually get, or maybe yesterday, your time to actually get used to your location. Because if you go from here straight to Alaska, to Kodiak, Alaska, to train with the SEALs and the freaking cold weather thing, I'm pretty sure you're going to have a problem, right? Or if you're coming from Washington State and coming over here, you're going to have an issue like adapting to the heat. It's going to be a big problem, right? Clothes is going to be loose fitting. Make sure you have your work schedules. There's a felt chart that's on the other slide. It's not on this one. You're going to monitor your wet bulb globe temperature thermometer index. Prevention of cold injuries. Those are going to be your ones you're going to see in the advancement exam, right? Immersion syndrome, which is going to be trench foot, frostbite, hypothermia, carbon monoxide poisoning. That's going to be indirect. And snowburn or snow blindness. So you always see everybody out there wearing their cool freaking glasses, right? Because you can actually get temporarily blinded. Beaches can do that to you too. Immersion syndrome, bad picture right there. I think the new one, the other slide deck that I have has better pictures. Basically, if you're standing in water below 50 degrees. That happens a lot in training. Trench warfare happened a lot in World War I. Accidents happen. It's one of the journals that I read. It's actually happening a lot in the Ukraine right now. Between the Ukraine and Russia conflict, because they're literally doing trench warfare right now, and that is for real warriors, man. Trench warfare is terrifying.
50 degrees is the number. That's the only thing you really need to pay attention to for the test with your immersion syndrome.
24 hours, temperatures below 50 degrees for emergency. That's going to be frostbite right there. Exposure to anything that's freezing. You can get frostbite at like 50 degrees, I believe. Just being outside, because if you're outside and it's cold, your extremities, specifically like your earlobes, your fingertips, your nose, the constant blowing without protection will actually can actually damage you. This is going to be your thing. If somebody says they have prickling sensation, they're either already experiencing it or they're about to. Yellowish white, basically the skin is dying. The intraosseous fluid, or whatever it's called, I can't remember what it's called, but it actually starts. Yeah, there's a pooling of liquid in there. Interstitial fluid. It'll actually start pooling inside of your extremities and cause the swelling, which is that. So you ever cut yourself and there's clear liquid that walks out? That's interstitial fluid. Yeah, right there. Hypothermia can result in as little as 5 minutes. So any of us that went to Great Lakes for core school, I was there in the winter. That was no joke. And I was there in utilities back in the day too. So it was literally dicky pants and everything was going so cold. Carbon monoxide poisoning is going to be not really exposure to that, but the reason why is because of people burning fuels to provide warmth. So never put your camp or your tent next to an exhaust to try to get heat. Because carbon monoxide, you're going to die from carbon monoxide. You could potentially die from carbon monoxide poisoning, right? Adequate ventilation is paramount. Snow burn and snow blindness is basically just getting like shocked because everything is too bright for your eyes to maintain. So when you see people squinting, there's ways that you can make easy glasses. You ever see like Dude Survival or stuff like that? You can just get like a piece of cloth, cut little holes in it, and just put it on, and you'll be able to see. Prevention of cold injuries. One thing as well is going to be acclimatization. Protective clothing. The military now does have like inclement weather systems. It wasn't in place back then. It was just wool and like liners and stuff. But now there's like an actual system. Anybody who's been grid side, there's like a system of how you wear your soak weights, and then you wear your grid fleece, and then you wear your uniform, and then you sleep totally naked inside your sleeping bag. There's a whole process for it because they go out there a lot to bridge board and things like that. Personal hygiene is huge. It depletes in the field a lot. Exercising, sunglasses, sunscreen, and the buddy system. Disease control. That's your chain of transmission. I'm sure you guys have talked about this before. Your reservoir, your means of transmission, your mode of transmission as well as known as that. Port of entry and susceptible host. Who is a susceptible host? Everyone who's in the field. Everyone is a susceptible host. If you don't have those protections, everyone is a susceptible host. Those are going to be your diseases of military importance. We kind of went through some of it earlier today. The other ones that are part of the other list I'd worry about more than the ones that are here because again, this is very antiquated. And all of these are actually on that list as well. Except for shigellosis, that's not on there anymore. Respiratory tract diseases by direct inhalation of infectious organisms, influenza, common colds, that happens a lot in the field, all right? So you should still enforce the head to toe sleeping if you can. You know, it doesn't happen a lot because you're like, if you got a tablet or something, like an iPad, and you're like, hey, let's watch this movie together, and you fall asleep face to face with your homie, make sure your boot bag's on, right? Vector-borne diseases, there's two classes, there's insects and arachnids. Insects are going to be fleas, lice, flies, mosquitoes, etc., and arachnids, which, if you didn't know, ticks are part of the arachnid family. Mites and spiders. The things that are just transferred by that are going to be malaria, yellow fever, sandfly fever, typhus plague, spotted fever, dengue, and hemorrhagic fever, so like Ebola technically. And the reason why is because when the fly or whatever is biting you, that blood is still in them, and if it goes into the other person, it could actually like injure them as well. Now, was it you guys that I talked to about Aedes aegypti, and or was it? Okay, so those are the vectors that are going to be for malaria. So malaria, and I wrote it down in your little thing. Malaria, the vector is a female Anopheles mosquito. Okay, and this is your little form that I gave you. For yellow fever and for dengue fever, it's the Aedes aegypti. Easy way to remember that is yellow fever, pyramids, right? Pyramids are yellowish, sandy color. Yellow fever, Aedes aegypti. Oh, okay. There it is. Malaria, the only one is going to be the female Anopheles. And the reason why is because the female Anopheles, we're going to talk about this a little bit more tomorrow because I have you guys for malaria as well. Female Anopheles mosquito actually requires a blood meal in order for her eggs to be fertilized. Meanwhile, the male mosquitoes are just floating around drunk, like getting a nectar and fertilizing eggs. Zoonotic diseases are anything that can be transmitted from an animal, like rabies specifically, or indirectly, which can be plagued by the flea. STIs in the field, believe it or not, it happens a lot. I caught somebody getting dirty and getting into it in a porta john when I was in Yuma, and that was gross. Pediculosis, I did bring this up earlier, that's going to be lice. We don't really practice delousing anymore. However, delousing is like the aggressive. If anybody's watched First Blood, like Rambo, well, if you do, it's at the very beginning, they like strip him down, they like throw a lie at him, and they like scrub him down. That's delousing. We don't do that. Scabies and of course venomous animals. Any questions? Sorry for spilling over. 30 minutes is not enough time for that one.
No, they shortened the schedules this week for a bunch of other things going on at Portsmouth because I told them to originally have 45 minutes to an hour for Chapter 9.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I know it's ran through, but everything, if you look and really pay attention to that form that I gave you guys, everything that I've gone through today, make it easy for you guys because I know it's a lot. And we read a lot in the Fed Right. Okay.
Yeah, so my guy's here. He's been waiting. All right, so I'm gonna let y'all know, especially H1 Hill on here. My team's call closes out after an hour, so it might close out at some point. If it does, all I'm gonna do is just quick log everybody back in, which only takes like 5 seconds, and then you can still continue on with your presentation. So I'm gonna pull up everything now.
And you guys need to get my email.